Hey guys, Nuzzle here and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we have a battle royale of sorts between the three live-action Spider-Men. You know, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and the Tom Holland Spider-Man. If you enjoyed this video, dislike and subscribe. We're going to go through a couple of rules almost first. Firstly, they're only going to be allowed to use their base suits, if that makes sense, because it wouldn't really be fair that Tom Holland has all of these different suits, and that Tobey Maguire only has one of them, and Andrew Garfield literally has no other suit. So yeah, it also really just goes to show who is the best Spider-Man in combat as well. Seeing that you could give Andrew Garfield the Iron Spider armor, and that would just that would just make things a little bit unfair. Giving one Spider-Man access to all of this and not giving the other. That said, the only other thing I'm going to bring up is the fact that in the new movie, the villains that are from the Raimi trilogy and the Amazing Spider-Man trilogy, or I guess two movies rather, both of them seem to be at least different in strength compared to where they were in their own movies. This makes sense because obviously it's a much more entertaining movie if they are closer in strength compared to Spider-Man, compared to if, say, they were absolutely destroying MCU Spider-Man, or MCU Spider-Man was absolutely destroying them, if that makes any sort of sense. So only feats from their own movies will be counted here. And, when the new Spider-Man movie comes out, I do intend to come back and make another Spider-Man video, but this time talking about every single Spider-Man, from the comics and everything like that as well. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, let's just get into this video. For strength attack potency, and I bet you're expecting me to bring up the fact that, the original Spider-Man could, say, hold back a train, and the new Spider-Man could hold together a ferry, but that isn't, that is quite impressive. That's not quite, striking strength. Lifting or pushing strength is quite different to, how much you could actually throw in a punch. So we're actually going to be more looking at, the attack potency here. That said, Spider-Man from the original trilogy was able to damage Venom, who was able to, or at least somewhat, take the pumpkin bombs from Green Goblin. And these bombs were able to output around 0.2 tons of TNT in terms of explosive power, and that would be enough to destroy a small building. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, meanwhile, is comparable to the Lizard, who was able to bust through several walls quite casually, and also send Spider-Man himself through many different walls. So while there's not really much of a way to calc that out, we know that it's at least wall level, but probably not that much higher than that. So Raimi Spider-Man is more than likely more powerful than Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. MCU Spider-Man, meanwhile, was able to take on the likes of Captain America and the Winter Soldier individually, who were both able to take on Black Panther, and Black Panther was able to take attacks from tanks, and tanks were able to output around 0.03 tons of TNT, or just over small building level. So I'd say MCU Spider-Man is only just stronger than the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man trails behind in last place. As for speed, and the best that the original Spider-Man trilogy Spider-Man was able to show was being able to dodge bullets, and bullets travel at average around 1,800 miles per hour. So the original trilogy Spider-Man should really scale to that. As for Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, he was able to dodge lightning from Electro, and lightning travels at around 270,000 miles per hour. So Andrew Garfield Spider-Man definitely is faster than the likes of the Raimi trilogy Spider-Man. MCU Spider-Man, meanwhile, was able to react to attacks from Scarlet Witch, who was able to catch, or be fast enough to catch, an explosion. To do that, he'd have to move around 3,600 miles per hour. So, while dodging bullets is quite impressive, it's nowhere near what the other Spider-Man have shown, and Andrew Garfield is at the top of the pecking order here this time. Going on to durability now, and the Raimi Spider-Man was, of course, able to take one of the Goblin explosions, one of the pumpkin bombs, but that said, he scales far above the likes of Venom, who, while, Venom pretty much died from the pumpkin bomb, Spider-Man was able to get out of it almost unscathed. So, he scales far above the 0.02 tons of TNT that we brought up earlier. The Amazing Spider-Man, meanwhile, was of course able to take attacks from the Lizard. So that should say that his durability should scale to his attack potency, meaning that he should have wall level durability also. Meanwhile, of course, the MCU Spider-Man was able to take attacks from Captain America and his Captain America shield, so his durability should scale to his attack potency also. So the durability here is much like what it was in the attack potency. If not, it's probably a tie at the top, seeing that we know that, you know, the Raimi Spider-Man is much more durable than, you know, he is powerful. However, that said, there's not much of a way to quantifiably scale that. So yeah, the durability here is a tie for the top. Meanwhile, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is the weakest in terms of durability. For the ability's weaponry techniques, of course, the Raimi Spider-Man has the ability to create webs, like organically as well, not actually like with web shooters. He's also got enhanced senses, the spider sense, which allows him to have precognition, is a master martial artist and has knows like the pressure points of the human body, as he was able to strike Harry Osborn in the heart, knocking him out. He's also a master of stealth, has some level of like low regeneration, and is also quite acrobatic also, along with the surface scaling that you typically see with Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, meanwhile, also has enhanced senses as a master martial artist and his precognition, along with like the web creation, although that is more with, you know, the web shooters. There's also the fact he has genius intellect with how he was able to create his own suits. He also has resistance to electricity in both his webs and his suit due to his fight with Electro. He also, of course, has surface scaling and a little bit of regeneration also. Tom Holland Spider-Man, meanwhile, has genius intellect also. He's a master martial artist, has enhanced senses, and is also multilingual, which means he knows multiple languages. He can also, of course, create webs, has precognition, can scale surfaces. He's also, of course, quite acrobatic, has limited electricity manipulation with his taser webs. He also has information analysis, X-ray vision, explosion creation. He can also put a GPS onto people too. He has a heater and a parachute within his suit and minimal flight that comes along with that. And he also has like minimal resistance to illusions, as his spider sense is able to help him through it. So in terms of who's the most versatile, I think it's clear that the MCU Spider-Man is, and for who has the best abilities, that's a little bit more up in the air, but it's probably also the MCU Spider-Man. You know, the Raimi Spider-Man, you know, with the pressure point strikes is quite overpowered, but, you know, that's only really one thing, whereas MCU Spider-Man has a fair bit. And also, while Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is resistant to electricity, that's really his only unique trait, if that makes any sort of sense. So yeah, the abilities and versatility point here both go to Tom Holland Spider-Man. As for weaknesses, and due to his heroic nature, the Raimi Spider-Man is often shown willing to sacrifice himself to save others, which of course could lead to his downfall. Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, meanwhile, is often quite overconfident and cocky in his fights and doesn't quite take them seriously until it's too late. This is often shown when, you know, the death of Gwen Stacy happened. Tom Holland Spider-Man, meanwhile, doesn't really have that many weaknesses, other than maybe his inexperience in a battlefield. However, of course, through his multiple fights, he has grown to, you know, get experience. So, for who's the most vulnerable, it is almost subjective, because all three of them have very minor weaknesses that they can still deal without. I'd probably say that Tom Holland Spider-Man is maybe the most vulnerable, but it's not exactly, you know, clear-cut. I'd probably say also that after the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is the least vulnerable. Meanwhile, Amazing Spider-Man, you know, Spider-Man is second, and third would be Tom Holland, although it's very objective based for this one. Now for the conclusion, we've gathered from this that the MCU Spider-Man is the strongest, joint most durable, has the better abilities, and is more versatile. Meanwhile, the Amazing Spider-Man, you know, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man is the fastest. Meanwhile, the Raimi trilogy Spider-Man is joint most durable and is the least vulnerable. So I think it is sort of clear who wins the fight. You know, you could say that, yeah, the Raimi Spider-Man could, say, knock the other two out just by striking their hearts. However, given the fact that how he's literally the slowest and by a considerable margin, I don't really see that happening. And, well, yes, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man's faster than the MCU Spider-Man and could definitely chip away at him. It takes much less time for the MCU Spider-Man to take out Andrew Garfield Spider-Man than, you know, for the other way around to happen. So I'd definitely say the MCU Spider-Man will win this fight overall. Whoever comes second is kind of close. I'd probably say Raimi Trilogy Spider-Man, although the fact that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's so much faster is definitely, going to be a challenge to overcome. But that said, Tom Holland wins overall, which does make the most amount of sense since, well, yes, we are using his base suit. His base suit was still also made by Tony Stark, so, hence why he has all of the, explosions and electrical webs. And, well, yeah, they won't be able to affect Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man with electricity. He has much more options that he could use. And the stealth mastery for either of them doesn't really work if you can get the GPS tracker on both of them, so yeah, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then make sure to dislike and subscribe, and yes, I will see you in the next video.